back in Revelation. We just finished chapter 8, 3 through 6. And now we're going into Revelation 8, 7 through 13. And this is going to be going into the trumpets. So the first angel sounded, and hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth, and a third of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up. Then the second angel sounded, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown down into the sea, and a third of the sea became blood, and a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. Then the third angel sounded, and a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and on a third of the springs of water. The name of the star is wormwood. A third of the waters became wormwood, and many men died from the water because it was made bitter. Then the fourth angel sounded, and a third of the sun was struck, and a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them were darkened. A third of the day did not shine, and likewise the night. And I looked, and I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because the remaining blast of the trumpet of the three angels who are about to sound. Okay, first of all, it's talking about a third of this and a third of that and a third of this and a third of that. I used to always think, well, you cut out a third out of a pie and you have this chunk. So you're thinking a third of the earth. Okay, this chunk of the earth. Well, that may not necessarily be the case. It may be a third of the earth in terms of how much of the earth is affected, but it could be all around the world that these things are maybe not just in one location. You know what I'm saying?
I was thinking the same thing.
But it could be areas. I think about like the hurricanes that we have. Well, we have hurricanes that are touching down here in the United States, in Florida and along the Gulf Coast, but there's other parts of the world that have hurricanes and that affect those areas. But when you combine them all together, it could make a third of the earth, that are affected. So there probably are areas where maybe a certain, like if a mountain fell into the sea, well, obviously whatever's around that is going to be probably a third of what is affected as far as that goes. So don't necessarily expect it to be this carved out pie of the earth that's going to be this particular third of the earth. It could be kind of spread out through the earth, but altogether make up a third. So that's just kind of something to think about with that. All right, I'm going to take you to, gotta cross-reference everything. So I'm going to take you to Ezekiel 38. Ezekiel 38, and I'm just going to start reading at verse 1. Now the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Okay, these are specific areas of the world that it's talking about. And say, Thus says the Lord God, Behold, I am against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. I think this is kind of all, they talk about Gog and Magog and, kind of Russia, Turkey, all this Middle East area, all these, yes. So it says, I will turn you around, put hooks into your jaws, and lead you out with all your army, horses, and horsemen, all splendidly clothed, a great company with bucklers, shields and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, and that's of course referring to an army. And so it says Persia, Ethiopia, Libya are with them. Well, Persia is Iran, Iraq, and so you look at these, Ethiopia would be like Africa. These are all Muslim nations, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all its troops, the house of Togarmah from the far north, and all its troops, many peoples are with you. So many peoples, this is a large gathering of nations. Prepare yourself and be ready, you and all your companies that are gathered about you, and be a guard for them. After many days, you will be visited in the latter years. Okay, so now we're talking end times. You will come into the land of those brought back from the sword, who was brought back from the sword recently? I think it's Israel, because they were, became a nation again, and they were World War II and all these other things. I think these nations are coming into this land Let's see. It says, in the latter days, you will come into the land of those brought back from the sword, Israel, and gathered from many people on the mountains of Israel, which had long been desolate. So Israel was desolate, and when they became a nation, they started flourishing again. They were brought out of the nations, and now all of them dwell safely.
Yes.
You will ascend, coming like a storm, covering the land. This is talking about Armageddon. Coming like a storm, covering the land like a cloud. You and all your troops and many peoples with you, all against little Israel. Thus says the Lord God, on that day, when he's describing all this stuff happening, it shall come to pass that thoughts will arise in your mind, and you will make an evil plan. You will say, I will go up against the land of unwalled villages. I will go to a peaceful people who dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates, to take plunder and to take booty, to stretch out your hand against the waste places that are again inhabited, and against a people gathered from the nations, who have acquired livestock and goods, who dwell in the midst of the land. Sheba, Dedan, and merchants of Tarshish, and all their young lions will say to you, have you come to take plunder? Have you gathered your army to take booty, to carry away silver, gold, to take away livestock and goods, to take great plunder? Therefore, Son of man, prophesy and say to Gog, thus says the Lord God, on that day when my people Israel dwell safely, will you not know it? Then you will come from your place out of the far north, and you and many peoples with you. So this is talking about, this gathering of nations, all of them riding on horses in great company, a mighty army. You will come up against my people Israel like a cloud to cover the land. It will be in the latter days that I will bring you against my land, so that the nations may know me when I am hallowed in you, O Gog, before their eyes. Thus says the Lord God, are you he of whom I have spoken in former days by my servants, the prophets of Israel, who prophesied for years in those days that I would bring you against them? And it will come to pass at the same time, when Gog comes against the land of Israel, says the Lord God, that my fury will show in my face. In my face. Does that mean he has set his foot on the land at this point? Did Jesus set his feet down on the ground?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't say that for sure, but Revelation 16:14 through 21 is a reference to that right there. It will come to pass at the same time when Gog comes against the land of Israel, says the Lord, that my fury will show in my face. For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath I have spoken. Surely in that day there shall be. What is there going to be in that day? This is when the Armageddon troops are surrounding them. This is when it's in his face. You can see it in his face. It says,
a great earthquake.
Yeah, where am I at
Great
here?
shaking, 19. Great shaking or cosmic catastrophe.
In that day there will be a great earthquake in the land of Israel, so that the fish of the sea, the birds of the heavens, and the beasts of the fields, all creeping things that creep on the earth, and all men who are on the face of the earth shall shake at my presence. Now we're talking for sure. His presence is there. So, interestingly, the earthquake is in the land of Israel. And what does it says in other areas? There's be such a big earthquake when the Lord comes back that the land of Israel, it's going to split apart. So it says, the mountains shall be thrown down, the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. I will call for a sword against Gog throughout all my mountains, says the Lord God. Every man's sword will be against his brother, and I will bring him to judgment with pestilence and bloodshed. I will rain down on him, on his troops, and on the many peoples who are with him, flooding rain, great hailstones, fire, and brimstone. Thus I will magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations. Then they shall know that I am the Lord. That's so important because that gives us a time reference of when Jesus his presence is there. They will see the fury in his face. The nations are gathered against Israel. It's all pictured right there. And he says he will magnify himself, at that time. So that gives us a kind of a time frame of what's actually happening when we see the earthquake, the mountains, all this stuff happening. So again, when we go back to Revelation and we start to see this unfolding of what is happening in the seven trumpets and the seven seals, we have to keep, this stuff in mind. Did I also have 39 in there? It continues on actually in 39. It talks about what he's going to do with Gog and turning them around. Behold, I'm against you, O Gog, I will turn you around and lead you on, bringing you up from the far north. Then I will knock the bow out of your left hand and cause the arrows to fall out of your right hand. In other words, I'm going to knock you flat on your face. Yeah. You shall fall upon the mountains of Israel, and you and all your troops and all the peoples who are with you. I will give you two birds of prey. I will give you 2 birds of prey of every sort, and to the beasts of the field to be devoured. Right on that verse right there, Revelation 19, 18 through 19. I'm in 39, verse 4. Revelation, and then you want to write as a cross-reference, Revelation 19, 18 through 19. You shall fall on the open field, for I have spoken, says the Lord. I will send fire on Magog and those who live in security in the coastlands. Then they shall know that I am the Lord. So I will make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel, and I will not let them profane my holy name any more. Enough is enough. Then the nations shall know that I am the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. Surely it is coming, and it shall be done, says the Lord God. This is the day of which I have spoken. Then those who dwell in the cities of Israel will go out and set on fire and burn the weapons, both the shields and the bucklers and the bows and the arrows and the javelins and the spears, and it goes on for 7 years. They will make fires with them for 7 years. They will not take wood from the field nor cut down any of the forest, because they will make fires with the weapons, and they will plunder those who plunder them. They will make fires with the weapon. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And pillage those who pillage them, says the Lord God. It will come to pass in that day, I will give Gog a burial place there in Israel, the valley of those who pass by the east of the sea, and it will obstruct travelers, because they will bury Gog and all its multitude. Remember, talked about blood up to the horse's pride.
Yeah.
Indeed, all the people of the land will be burying, and they will gain renown for it on the day that I am glorified, says the Lord. They will set apart men regularly employed with the help of a search party to pass through the land and bury those bodies remaining on the ground, a search party, in order to cleanse it. At the end of 7 months, they will make a search. The search party will pass through the land, and when anyone sees a man's bone, he shall set up a marker by it till the buriers have buried it in the valley of Hamon-Gog. The name of the city will also be Hamanah. Thus they shall cleanse the land. And as for you, son of man, thus says the Lord, speak to every sort of bird and to every beast of the field. Assemble yourselves and come, gather together from all sides of my sacrificial meal. That sacrificial meal is in Revelation 19 that I just quoted to you, which I am sacrificing for you, a great sacrificial meal on the mountains of Israel, that you may eat the flesh and drink the blood. You shall eat the flesh of the mighty, drink the blood of the princes of the earth, of the rams and lambs, of goats and bulls, all of them, fatlings of Bashan. You shall eat fat until you are full, and drink blood till you are drunk at my sacrificial meal, which I am sacrificing for you. You shall be filled at my tables with horses and riders, with mighty men, and with all the men of war, says the Lord God. And I'm going to go just a little further, because it talks about the house of the Lord will know that I am their God from that day forward. The Gentiles shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity, and it goes on. So you can go ahead and read through, but you can see that the Old Testament is full of the second coming of the Lord prophecies. It's full of it. It is full of it.
I don't know. My brain just, I know I've read it, but I didn't correlate it.
It's
what
getting
have we
late.
set up for, Are we doing it?
Oh,